It is the 200 level, Mike Carpenter in the basement studio, and my voice might be a little scratchy today, but my heart is full. Snow football. Felt like a kid. What a night at Memorial Stadium. Not that the game was that great. Not that I'm going to remember all that many individual moments from that game. Which, hey, fortunately, when you have a snow game and you aren't having that many forward passes, it goes pretty quick. So that was about 3 hours and we were out of there. But I had this thought about sports and why myself and why anyone out there that would spend time listening or watching a sports podcast, why we invest so much into it. And it occurred to me that sports is essentially all about accumulating memories and moments. It's why we keep going to games. It's why we travel for some of them. It's why we brave the elements, as a few thousand did last night in Champaign. And by the way, for those that went, kudos. It's easy for me. You know, it's a 5-minute drive, 10 minutes in bad weather like last night. I'm in town. So it was really kind of a no-brainer. But I know there are people that actually traveled in. Our good friends Gino and his son Tommy, they drove in from Bloomington yesterday. Ended up staying at the Home Tube Suites over off of Neal Street. But if you didn't come, that's totally understandable because it was miserable. Yet, this idea of sports is basically memories and moments. And why we keep going to games and buying tickets and traveling to see our teams play is less about the game than it is all the surrounding things. I think that's what's so cool about college football. As I was standing in lot 31 yesterday, I parked in the paved lot, but our friends Gino and Tommy had a big truck that has 4-wheel drive. So they were able to get a tent up with the side, get a fire going in the charcoal grill. We had some neighbors next to us and, they actually brought their snowmobiles out and were riding those around lot 31. And as I'm looking around and I see the stadium in the background with that weird kind of haze that you get when there's a blustery snow that's getting blown across the prairie lands that we have here in Champaign-Urbana. It was eerie. It was cool. It felt almost apocalyptic, and at the same time, just got me pumped. And I think, why was I so excited about snow football? Where a week ago I was on this podcast, basically saying I'm not going to spend any time on this shit anymore. Like, they lose at Wisconsin, have fun, guys. But I'm out. I'm emotionally out. And then Mother Nature keeps telling us, okay, the weather forecast is getting worse and worse and worse. More snow. And the worse the forecast got, the more excited I got to actually go to the game. And what happened as I was watching that game is there were moments of frustration. There were times where Illinois missed opportunities. And, man, it would have been nice to put that game away and not sweat it out to the extent that you did. But I was also unencumbered a little bit, especially compared to the Wisconsin game where I was just miserable watching that. And just soaking in the scene, enjoying the elements for what they were, and enjoying the company that I was around. And if that sounds a little trite, I understand. I do. But it just occurred to me last night and why I was just so excited, smile plastered across my face throughout the evening. And then when I got home and I just try to settle down, watching Jeremy and Joey's podcast late in the evening and just, kind of reliving all of it, looking through pictures and video. And it just occurred to me that, man, sports at its best is when you have both the game itself and all the extracurriculars surrounding it kind of coalescing into this really memorable whole. And that's what it was last night. So we will talk about the 8-win season. We'll talk about the macro picture of Illinois football. But I would be remiss if I did not start with, yes, snow, which maybe we're sick of hearing about because I'm sure on the telecast last night they kept talking about it. But to be there and to experience it was just awesome. And when you're there, I knew as this was going on, this is immediately an all-timer football memory. And it takes me back to 1993, which now that it occurred to me this morning, was my first football memory, a snow game at Memorial Stadium. Minnesota was in town. I think the 93 team was 5-5-1. Is that right? 6-5, one of the two. The next year, 1994, they went 8-4, but probably should have been better with the talent they had. But it was a snow game in November at Memorial Stadium against Minnesota. I forgot that Ty Douthard was a freshman that year, but Johnny Johnson was the quarterback. Illinois was trailing by 4 with, I think, a minute and change left. And they drove 87 yards, and it culminated in a screen pass to Ty Douthard, and he runs it in the snow, rumbling in the end zone. Place goes nuts. I guess there were 50,000 people there, according to the count. Now, my dad and I and my uncle and cousin were under the east balcony. So we were sheltered from the falling snow. And I remember it being cold, but not miserable. But apparently looking back, the wind chill was 10 degrees, which essentially was last night. And that was my first football memory, was a snow game. So I don't know if it was a subconscious thing or, why this excitement was building up throughout the week of, okay, come on, more inches of snow, more, bring it. And thinking, unless it is absolutely miserable, I'm going to this thing. And that as I was sitting there yesterday, God, if this sounds a little, I don't know, way too introspective, fine, but 1993 to 2025 is 32 years. 32 years later, I'm still going to these games. And I will immediately vault this one up there with my most memorable moments inside of that stadium. And I know that is the skinniest kid at fat camp argument when you consider Illinois football's history. But you know what's really cool about this is we're starting to accrue a lot more memories and moments during the Brett Bielema era. And I'm grateful for that. It is the weekend of being grateful and thankful, after all, right? And to be 8-4, and we'll talk about the flaws, and we'll talk about the things that need addressing, of which there are quite a few. And to be staring down the barrel of a Music City Bowl invite, in all likelihood, in Nashville, we're going to make another memory because I got friends and family that are going to drive down for that. What a cool place to be as an Illini football fan, where all too often we would enter the month of November with no meaningful football left to be played. And while this was not the most meaningful football that we would have liked in terms of solidifying a college football playoff bid or something like that, it still meant something. It did mean something. And I know anyone that was at the game last night, no one's waking up this morning saying, ugh, I regret going. I was too cold. I guarantee you everyone that went last night is waking up saying, God, that was really fun. And I hope for those watching on TV, it was fun to just see there wasn't a whole lot of slipping and sliding around. I got to say, whatever cleats the teams were wearing seemed to work okay. But what a cool night. What a cool night. And sports are awesome. And snow is awesome. I used to really get kind of angry with snow, but then I see my dog going outside and just barreling around. She's a little corgi, getting, legs stuck in it and just like, okay, this is kind of fun. I'm literally just before I came on the podcast, I saw going down the street, a mom was carrying her 2 kids on a sled down the street, and the kids are just squealing with delight. And I'm like, come on. Am I going to be some Grinch about that? I can't be. It's fun. So we are going to talk about more than snow today. But I just had to get that out, how cool it was to be there last night. Experience all of it with friends, and on we go. To, I would presume, the Music City Bowl, the way things are shaking out. But before I get too far ahead of myself, I want to remind you the best way to support us during this holiday season, the 200 level that is to support our sponsors. And that starts with Hamilton Walkers in downtown Champaign. Steak, seafood, and spirits right in the heart of downtown Champaign. And listen, Hamilton Walkers is great any time of year, but I will say this from experience, during the holiday season on a cold winter's night, and it looks like we're going to have quite a cold stretch for the next few weeks here. Hamilton Walkers, you go in there, the dining room, nice, kind of darkly lit, not too dark, but nice ambiance. You got your sweater vest on, you got your big pea coat, and you sit down and you order an old-fashioned. And then they bring you a basket of bread. You get super salad with whatever entree you got. I usually get the Caesar salad. Get a medium, you might want medium rare, bone-in steak, family-style sides. I get the steak fries, usually either green beans or asparagus, depending on what the mood fancies. And that right there, ladies and gentlemen, is a 5-star holiday meal. I hope that was food ASMR for those out there. And if so, go to Hamilton Walkers. Date night, informal, formal, pregame meal, postgame meal, whatever it be. Hamilton Walkers in downtown Champaign during this holiday season. Also, State Farm agent Brian Hansen online at brianismyguy.com for life, auto, home, business renters, you name it. Whatever your insurance needs are, visit online at brianismyguy.com. Brian, a big Illini fan, He's been tremendous to work with for myself, my wife, and the insurance needs that we have. We get the State Farm prices, as you would expect, competitive to anybody. But it's really the service and the customer service of Brian and his staff that separates them. So we appreciate Brian. Brian Hansen, State Farm agent at brianismyguy.com. Dogtown Heating, Air, and Plumbing, your home's best friend. Give them a call at 217-841-4728 and join their maintenance program. No overtime or weekend fees, guaranteed same-day service. This maintenance program includes fall furnace check, spring AC check. We've been doing this for a few years with them, and our HVAC system, which is about 15 years old, is just kicking butt. And on a cold day like today, that is more than welcome. So that is Dogtown Heating, Air, and Plumbing, 217-841-4728. And finally, Owen Builders LLC, online at owenbuildersllc.com for your next home improvement project. Check out a gallery of their work online at owenbuildersllc.com. I wonder if Luke made it out to the game last night. Big Illini fan. But here's the thing, even as we get into the winter months, they are still working. So whatever that home improvement project is, check out a gallery of their work and a free quote online while you're there at owenbuildersllc.com. Champaign Showers Podcast Network, appreciate them. Appreciate you, the listener. And hey, for the holiday season, what about the 200 level book? Yes, I'm going to sell my wares for like 10 seconds here. All formats available on Amazon, hardcover, paperback, Kindle. Nice little stocking stuffer as you are lining up gifts for the Illini fan in your life. Illini basketball, we talked about it on Friday. Ugh. Not to sound ungrateful on this Thanksgiving week, but no, today's podcast is about football, which does have issues. And it does kind of speak to the different expectations we have for the two programs. And I'm like, yay, 8-4, even though we're a week removed from losing to a bad Wisconsin team. Yay, football. And then if you ask me about basketball and we lose to UConn, so admittedly, different expectations for both. Real quick, just to get, before I forget, the sort of adventure of yesterday. Last thing I'll really say about the snow, but the day's going on watching Michigan, Ohio State, a rather ho-hum affair. As I kind of predicted it would be, though, early on when Michigan took an early lead, I thought, oh, God, it's happening again. But no, Ohio State took care of business. It's about 3 o'clock, and I'm sitting around my house, and the initial idea was to get to the lots at 4, a paved lot 32 and 33, just south of 31. I'd scoped it out about noon. Went to Harvest Market to pick up a few things, get some hand warmers, and as I drove by the lots, understandably, they were empty. But the roads were fine. And the snow wasn't coming down that hard. So I thought, well, this is nice. Like aesthetically, it's nice and snowy, but the roads are totally manageable. Well, basically from noon until 5 p.m., that snow was coming down. And the roads deteriorated a little bit. In town, you just had to go slow. It was fine. Out of town, I don't know. Rural areas, it would have been tough, I imagine. And I leave the house at 3:30. And the idea was I'm going to go to Little Porgy's. I'm going to get a tub of tips. Me and my buddy Andrew, who was in town for Thanksgiving, we've done this a few times. A tub of tips is rib tips, smothered in barbecue sauce, of which Porgy's is a nostalgic favorite of ours. Big thing of fries. Take it to the tailgate. What better way to celebrate snow football than whiskey, rib tips, fries? Porgy's is closed. Oh, God, what am I going to do? So I thought, well, okay, let's just kind of call an audible here. No big deal. We're going to go to Harvest Market. We're going to get fried chicken. Because the thing about fried chicken is you can have it hot or you can have it cold. It doesn't matter. It's still good. Assuming that this chicken would get cold and get cold rather quick. Let's get fried chicken. So I go into Harvest Market. This is about 3:45. It's empty in there. Snow's coming down good. I got all my Illini garb on, big orange jacket. And I go up and I say, I'll take 10 chicken legs. Better make that 15 chicken legs. And the guy checking me out of Harvest Market says, are you going to the game? And he's looking at my outfit. And I say, yeah, I'm going. Yeah, got to. Snow football, He says, God damn, man. That shit is crazy. She brings me out, gives me a bunch of sauces, barbecue, buffalo, honey mustard. Okay, on my way. Get into the lots, and I back into a space. The idea being that my little CRV is going to protect me from the wind if I open the trunk. Kinda, but the wind and the snow was swirling so much that before I know it, my trunk has a sheet of little snowflakes dusted across it. All right, well, that ain't working. So our buddies Gino and Tommy get in with their big truck, and they say, you know what? We're going to go check out Lot 31. I say, I got 2-wheel drive, so scope it out. I'll just walk over there. It's a quick stone's throw away. if you guys get a good spot. And they did. They blocked the wind, and that's where we spent the next 2 hours with a fire in the charcoal grill, assorted whiskey tasting, chicken legs fried with, kettle cooked potato chips. That was the spread. That was the extent of the spread. And that was all I needed, man. It was one of the best tailgates ever. Short, abbreviated for sure. If we would have spent a few more hours out there, the weather probably would have begun to fatigue us a little bit. But at that moment, it was the perfect amount. You go in the stadium. And by the way, they weren't checking parking passes. They weren't really checking tickets that hard. I had to show them on my phone, but the scanners were not working. For security, they said, all right, open your jacket. All right, jacket. I don't have any bombs. Thank you. In you go. And West Main was the only section open. Now, I understand why. My hope was, let's go up to the balcony. We're going to shield ourselves from the wind by the brick colonnade or column, and we'll get a great vantage point of the game, but they did not allow fans up there. But our buddy Gino, he has season tickets up there, and he's feeling pretty good. So he decides, I'm going to go try to find a way to get up there. And Tommy kind of shrugs and says, all right, well, let us know if you do, and if you find a way, we'll meet you up there. So we get a call about 10 minutes later. This is midway through the first quarter, and Gino somehow navigated his way to the balcony. He found a random door and just walked in it. And he was like, I got a great vantage point up here. It's just me. I'm the only guy in the west balcony. And I look at Tommy, and Tommy's shaking his head. And I say, well, I'm going to go investigate and see if I can find this door. So I go back up to the main concourse, and I go into stairwell 6. And I've never been up there before, but the door opens. I'm thinking, well, maybe this is the one he's talking about. Maybe this is just a stairway up to the balcony. Let's try it. I go up a couple flights, and then I open the door, and I hear people talking, and I'm pretty sure, wait a second. I think this is the Colonnades Club. I'm not really in the mood for trouble tonight, so I'm just going to go back. Well, midway through the second quarter, Gino emerges, and he's like, I got kicked out. And we're like, oh, well, what happened? He said, well, the usher came by and said, hey, you got to leave your seat. And I just told him, hey, this is my season tickets are right here. I'll show you the ticket. A few minutes later, 4 cops show up to tell him, hey, man, you got to go downstairs. And Gino's like, all right, I'll go down. There was no hassle or anything, but 4 cops showed up. On top of that, there was a little bit of anarchy kind of, swimming about this event last night where people were throwing snowballs. My friend got accused of throwing a snowball at one of the security people on the field. He's like, I didn't throw any snowballs. They were flying around a little bit down by the horseshoe. He's like, I didn't do it. And he's yelling at this guy from 20 rows away as they're trying to point at him. Say, get him. And my buddy's like, I didn't throw any snowballs. And then they had to remind fans, don't throw the snow. Of course, some snow was getting thrown. No one was really getting hurt. But the fun thing about all this kind of craziness circulating around this game, as the wind is swirling and the snow is just going right to left at Memorial Stadium, up right to the north end zone, just punching the marching Illini in the face with cold air and snow. And I'm just absorbing all of this craziness as the game is unfolding in relatively ho-hum fashion, but and thinking, this is great. This is just great. So that leads me, sorry for, again, a prolonged thing about not the game, about the game. Let's talk about the game. Who would have thunk that the Illinois defense would be the reason that you ended up winning that game? Now, Aaron Henry cannot be the defensive coordinator next year if you are to be taken seriously. But if that is his swan song, as it should be, not a bad way to go out. I did find it interesting how much the defensive philosophy shifted, it appeared at least, after you gave up the one touchdown you gave up, when Tanner Heckel terribly underplayed the touchdown pass in the back of the end zone. What was it, 3rd and 10 from the 11? And for some reason, he let a guy get behind him with the easiest touchdown catch you're ever going to see. And me and my friends, as we're watching this game, say, oh, God, there's that Illinois defense. And yet in the second half, the defense comes out with their hair on fire, kicking butt. And it would, as I've said before, be unfair to just give credit to Brett Bielema and say, hey, when it's going well, it's Brett Bielema. When it's going bad, it's Aaron Henry. I would imagine that Aaron Henry still called the plays in the second half. But there was a decided shift in defensive philosophy. And whether that came from him or whether that came from Brett Bielema, we'll never know. Brett Bielema said something after the game, crediting the defense and saying Aaron is a prideful guy or something along those lines. And it seemed like a way to compliment your, coordinator, but I don't know. I'm not trying to read between the lines because I don't know if there's lines to read between here, but it does seem as if that defense changed dramatically in the second half. Some sort of kick in the pants, whatever it may be, but it was noticeable. And in the second half, boy, oh boy, were they getting after the quarterback. They made Preston Stone freak out and turn into the Preston Stone that we saw for the first half of the year, which is throwing interceptions left and right. 4 picks. Could have been 5. And to think about the second half, which was, I think, in a way, even though less points were scored, more memorable than the first half because of the absolute, caravan of turnovers. You have the Tanner Heckle, the great play on the sideline that gets called a quarterback sack instead because Preston Stone's knee was down. And that was unfortunate because that was 2 great defensive plays in a row, and you would have wished that his knee wouldn't have quite touched. You had the Illinois fumble, and then the goal line stand. You have Miles Scott with 2 picks in his last game at Memorial Stadium. And what a game for him. And he looked like a heat-seeking missile as free safety, just shooting up, reading Preston Stone's eyes, getting those 2 picks that helped you close that thing out. And he gets out there for the victory formation. And Gabe Akis was Gabe Akis. Complete game wrecker, like Michigan last year. And I know this Northwestern team doesn't have the line play of that Michigan team, so that game had so much importance going on with the 100th anniversary of Memorial Stadium. But what a way for that dude to go out and probably make a few more dollars in the process, ending the season as the leader in sacks in the Big Ten. So the defense, Matt Bailey, I thought was flying around. He seemed to be everywhere last night. A couple great tackles from Dylan Rosiak, including what set up that goal line stand in the first place when I think they had 1st and goal from the 1, and he shoots a gap and tackles Northwestern at the 4, and then Northwestern can't gain those yards back on 2nd and 3rd down. They take the 3. So the defense won you that game on a night where the offense was ho-hum, and I'm wondering, is Barry Lunny really going to get a call to be head coach after the last 3 games? Because we can call it what it is. The offense was lifeless the last 3 games. Now, I think what that speaks to, Barry Lunny takes some of that accountability, but we all see it. The offensive line's not good. They still weren't good last night. That could have been a game where they recover and show that pride after a really bad performance in Madison. They weren't good yet again. So Bart Miller, here's your papers. Bye. So listen, it was a great night, but we can still call things what they are. Bart Miller, bye-bye. Aaron Henry, hey, nice finish, but you got to go, bye-bye. And here's what it sets up for me. We get the win. We get the celebration on the big snow piles, which how cool is that? Come on. I'm not going to talk about snow much more, but snow angels, snowball fights, Land of Lincoln, hat trophy, just pure jubilation and worthy of celebration. You beat your rival. You've won 4 out of 5 against Northwestern. We had Northwestern people in front of us, and they were fine. But, just kind of your cliche West suburban, no offense to my suburbanites that are listening, but you know the types. Just, I don't like it. I don't like that sort of West suburban. Maybe I should be more specific. North Shore Chicagoans, that their poop doesn't smell that bad. They would have you believe. And credit to them for traveling to see Northwestern play. Not a bad Northwestern team, decent Northwestern team. But darn if I wasn't happy that they went home less happy than I went home happy. I don't like Northwestern. I don't like the cut of their jib. I don't like their sort of hoity-toityness. And they're going to have this $1 billion new stadium, and they'll fill it with 5,000 people. But maybe more, because I think it's covered or indoors. And in fairness, their last one was just a glorified high school stadium. But I like beating Northwestern. And I like when I see Northwestern fans in their purple and their black have to take the drive back up to Chicago in their, what would a North Shore Chicagoan drive? That's at Ford Excursion, but that's much more central Illinois. And I'm painting with a broad brush here, but I don't like them. Bye. Safe travels. So you won, and you have the snowball fights and all that, but the great thing about winning a game like that and getting your 8th win, which is an achievement, despite one leaving some underwhelmed, and myself included, with some disappointments this year. However, you get the benefit of the win to end the regular season and what I expect to be the benefit of change, necessitated change from your flaws that were exposed all year long. It is a testament to Brett Bielema, who I will continue to say unequivocally is a good coach. I'm going to take a step back from great and certainly elite, but a step back from great until the changes are made that need to be made. And because of what he's built here, we can hold two truths at the same time. One is we're grateful for the fact the bar has been raised to a level where 8-4 is underwhelming for some, and understandably so. But on the other hand, because those expectations have been raised, we should expect more than what we saw from the defense this year and what we saw from the offensive line for the 5th year in a row. Not good enough. So do we wake up here a week from now with a Music City Bowl invite and staff changes after signing day, which is Tuesday, I believe, and then Wednesday, do we see staff changes? You damn well should. This should not be a question. Aaron Henry and Bart Miller, and I'm really lumping Bart Miller into that too. He's gotten plenty of grief, but enough. The offensive line has not been good enough. You got some yardage yesterday. You got a few chunk runs, but other than that, no, it's not good enough in year 5. And I would assume that Brett Bielema would want more from his offensive line than what he's gotten. Bart Miller, despite all the accolades that Bielema's thrown at him, is not working out here. If it's a talent issue, okay, that's on Brett Bielema. But I don't know, guys. They got the size. They have the snaps. And this is the best we can come up with. Eventually, yes, heads get put on the chopping block in college football. You got to try something new. You have to try something new. So I think we're looking at a possible best-case scenario here. This team told us all year long they were not a college football playoff team. They told us that from the first game. If you really go back to that Western Illinois game, was it Eastern? Directional Illinois school. You were fine, and you did what you had to do, but I don't think anyone left that game saying, oh, yeah. Now, Duke, you got the takeaways. That masked, though, the 480 yards that you gave up, or the 450 you gave up at Purdue, or the fact that you allowed 27 points to Wisconsin. Oh, look, last night, they still suck on offense. They're still bad. Oh, look, Washington struggling to score. Granted, against Oregon, but oh, look, they are not world beaters on offense. Time and time again. You know what's so weird, though, before I get too far ahead of myself? Then you see Rutgers putting up 36 points against Penn State. And I know Penn State's had the year from hell, but that's a defense loaded with talent. Jim Knowles is their high-paid defensive coordinator, and they almost lose last night. So you end up keeping that offense at bay. It's hard to figure. I understand it, but you can't count on Aaron Henry. You can't count on Bart Miller. So those changes need to be made. And when you have this much money coming into a program, we can sit and say, well, it's ultimately Brett's decision. Is it? Is it really? On one hand, it is. On the other, this is not college football from even 5 years ago. The money being put in this program means that people do have a say, whether it's implicit or explicit, they have a say. If Josh Whitman wants to push a little bit, I think he has the right to do so, as he is the one raising the money with the help of Brett Bielema, of course. But he is sort of that go-between between the big money and the head coaches. Hey, it was a good year. All things considered, I'm not going to use any word less than good for 8-4. But it could have been great potentially. If not college football playoff great, you could have looked better in the losses. You could have won one more game at least without shooting yourself in the foot with the same things over and over and over again. I do think changes will be made. We know changes have to be made. I would understand after a win, there's that leeriness of, oh God, what if they woke up on Sunday thinking everything's fine? I don't think they're going to wake up today thinking everything's fine. I think Brett Bielema is going to wake up after all the fun memories of that snow win and think, we figured it out. I think Aaron Henry in year 4, it's finally going to click. I think Bart Miller in year 6, it's finally just going to coalesce into something with 5 new offensive linemen, possibly. Well, at least 4. So I like this position. Brett Bielema has made changes before, significant changes. Year 1, offense was pretty stagnant. Fine. He moved on immediately after 1 year. He can do this. I think he is adaptable. I think there's flexibility in his decision-making, which you needed from a coach at that level. It's one of the things I've liked about Brad Underwood, though. That thing's just, we'll talk plenty about basketball this year. I don't want to get into it, not on this otherwise happy Sunday. And I think that leads to an offseason where you can look forward to a big bowl game against an SEC team, a beatable one, I would assume Tennessee, who kind of stumbled their way down the stretch, in Nashville, big crowd, and at the same time, maybe go get a big-ticket defensive coordinator. He's got the Rolodex. Go get a proven commodity at offensive line coach. Brett Bielema has guys he can bring in. Go bring them in. Make changes. And then I'm thinking, you know what? We might have sacrificed a win this year because of those flaws. But what if, and I got to give Trevor credit for this in our thread with me and Isaac, what if that extra loss or those areas of improvement really highlighted what needs to be done in a way that a 9-3 season might have masked, or 10-2 season certainly would have masked? Last year was a magical year in many fronts, and that can't be taken away from Illinois or Brett Bielema or us that experienced it. At 10-3, there were so many memorable moments in that season, and there were legitimately good performances, but the warning signs were there, and those, forgive the cliche, 2 cliches in a row. The warning signs were there, and the chickens came home to roost. They kind of did this year. You did not get the benefit of all that good luck, and teams figured out how to exploit that defense. Just soft as cheddar. Is cheddar soft? It is one of the softer cheeses. Soft as American cheese, if you will. Soft as Greek yogurt. I'm sorry, it's a Sunday morning and it's early, and give me a second to drink my coffee here. I'm in a bit of a goofy, slap happy mood from maybe being out in the elements as much as I was yesterday, but give me a second here. So I am looking forward to this week. I'm looking forward to this month to see what happens next with an 8-4 record in your back pocket and a Nashville Bowl that I will go to. Yes, I lied. I overreacted last week. I'm not going to a bowl game. They beat Northwestern on a snow game. I'm happy again, but with reservations that I think can be answered and I think will be answered. So all in all, how are we going to look at this regular season? And I got a bunch of comments I'm going to get to, so you guys can keep lining those up. I'm going to end this podcast just kind of going through those mailbag style. But how do we sort of sum up what the 2025 Illini season was? I said last week it was disappointing. Like it had officially moved to disappointing area. And I do think this season is the rare blend of disappointment in a nutshell. But from a macro perspective, you didn't lose any footing. Here's what I mean by that. We came into the season and I said 9-3 from the start. And it really should have held if they would have beaten a bad Wisconsin team, but I digress. I said 9-3, and I said probably not college football playoff. If everything goes their way, maybe. That'd be awesome. And I could envision that maybe happening, but I don't expect it. Didn't happen. Okay. The disappointment came in the manner in which you lost those games, and that other than USC, I talked about sports being accumulating and accruing moments and memories. USC was a memory. What was your other favorite memory of this year? Now, trust me, I like boring wins. I had a great time watching the Rutgers game and a great time watching the Maryland game. They were kind of boring, but you won and you were in control. I did not have a great time watching the Purdue game. I had a pretty darn good time the second half of the Duke game. So there's still more good than bad, but I think that those levers or the balance of those two was a little bit more equal despite the 8-4 record because the lows were so low. So disappointment that this team did not accomplish more. Disappointment that they might have had a window, but didn't really maximize it. But from the 30,000-foot view of the state of the program, you didn't do anything to damage your brand, as Illinois is so often done after big seasons. So to me, there's a sense of disappointment just of the season, but a sense of relief. And I'll take relief all the way to happiness that they got 8 wins. And I'm having the same conversation with you as I did 3 years ago when they beat Northwestern to go 8-4 after starting 7-1. Oddly enough, though, the difference between my feeling then in 2022 And this team, I feel more like 2022 underachieved than this one. Because of all the high-end talent on that team, if they just would have won those home games, they're still looking at a 10-2 record and a trip to the Big Ten title game. This team had too many glaring flaws and not enough top-end talent to make me think, oh, man, if only this would have went right, they would have been in the college football playoff. I'm watching college football playoff caliber teams. This team was not it. And they would have gotten smoked, having to go on the road to inevitably some SEC school. Illinois at Ole Miss, whether it's Lane Kiffin or an interim, which, by the way, have they announced Lane Kiffin? Just be more of a drama queen, Lane. And in a way, I hope he goes to LSU, and I hope they go 9-3 in perpetuity, because he is a little bitch, quite honestly. He just is. He's a man-child who just is an attention-seeking little guy who hasn't won anything. This is his best year by far, and he is just soaking in all this adulation as if he's Nick Saban. He is not. He will screw you over to LSU. I digress. Come on. I mean, that would have happened. Illinois seeks in the college football playoff. They're the 12th seed. Going to number 5, Ole Miss. Ouch. Not going to go well. And so that's fine. It's okay to acknowledge where you're at, which is good. The program is good. And I've used that word consistently this year, though there were questions that were being raised each time you lost a game in such emphatic fashion. Yesterday stops the bleeding. You put the tourniquet on, stop the bleeding, and now you make the changes necessary to not run into as many of these situations going forward. And here's the deal. That could mean that next year you go 7-5 with a pretty much brand new team. And I look at the schedule and try to make prognostications, but in this day and age, things change so quickly in college football. But let's say 7-5. I think they can do that even with an almost brand new roster. And I think Brett Bielema can build a team to do that and build a coaching staff capable of getting that team to a 7-win mark. And yet it would somehow feel less disappointing than this, because we aren't going to go in next year with any college football playoff talk, period. And that might be to our benefit. It's really going to be about, okay, don't dip back down to 5, find your way to a winning season somehow, some way, make a bowl game, and then build on some of this new talent that you've gathered. But I think overall, though, it's a puzzling year, and yet I do in this regular season less disappointed than 2022. And that leads me to my final point about it. What a world in which we can be mildly disappointed, not angry. I don't think it's cause of anger to be 8-4. If you are, I would really check your context of Illinois football and what this thing has been. But what a world in which we can look at 8-4 and we can be critical of areas, but overall still say, all right, see you in Nashville. I mean, it's so funny how, like, the last 4 years, and I am assuming we go to Nashville because it just makes sense in the pecking order, that I really would have checked off all the bowl games I've ever wanted to go to. I went to the Rose Bowl, lucky me, back in 07-08. And it was a fun once-in-a-lifetime experience, but if I never go back, that's okay. Because it's, for anyone that's been to the Rose Bowl, it is a pain in the butt. You tailgate in a golf course. You see the mountains. That's pretty. The Rose Bowl itself as a venue just sucks. It's just an old, stinky bowl. Not impressed. I'm not trying to be a killjoy. It's just not that impressive. So check that one off. Would love if they made the Sugar Bowl again, but I don't think that's ever in the cards. And New Orleans is such a cool city. I would love that. But no, Outback Bowl, now the ReliaQuest. Always wanted to go there. I did. The Citrus Bowl, even bigger, went there. But I've always loved the Music City Bowl. And to think in the last 4 years, check, check, check. Probably will get all 3. No Pinstripe Bowl. And you know what? Next year, I'll take a Pinstripe Bowl. I'll take a 7-5, kind of hold steady year for Illinois. Making the Pinstripe Bowl. I'm thinking, yeah, we're doing fine. Guys, on this podcast, you know that I can get really ticked off with Brad Underwood. And at times I've gotten ticked off with Brett Bielema. I think that speaks to the difference in expectations for both programs and the fact that for football, I don't need a lot. I don't need a lot to be happy. They gave me an 8-4 season. They gave me a snow game. They gave me a game winner against USC. They gave me a dominant second half against Duke. I know that you got to search for those nuggets in the season in a way that you didn't have to last year. And that is, yes, disappointing by definition. But we wake up a day before December with an 8-4 team. We get to watch the championship games next weekend. We aren't in it. I didn't expect this to be. But then we get to wake up a week from today as all the bowl invitations are being announced, and we find out what SEC team we're playing in Nashville. By the way, why I keep saying Nashville, Indiana, Ohio State, Oregon are in the playoff. Done. Michigan, not in the playoff. They'll go Citrus. Haven't been there in a while. Iowa will go Tampa. They haven't been there in a while. You're next in the pecking order. You got USC. You got Washington, but there are bowl games out west that are more likely destinations for them. I could see Washington, for instance, going Las Vegas Bowl. USC, I'm not sure what a bigger bowl out there would be because they are going to draw. But to Nashville? Are you going to get a bunch of USC fans going to Nashville? I think they stay out west. That gives you Nashville. Easy drive for Illinois fans. We've shown up well the last two bowl games. I think it would make sense for them to do that. And you got the head-to-head against USC. If that matters, I'm not sure. But, yeah, that it just seems like the natural pecking order has you going there. We knew last year. You beat Rutgers, you're going Citrus. The Tampa Bowl game was a mild surprise, but I think it does show that Illinois is a draw and that we are viewed as a pretty good team to get in there. Not Iowa levels. You could say Nebraska, will they travel? Of course they travel. But that's not a very exciting brand of football right now. You want to watch Latif go 5 for 20 passing, miss wide open guys, and see them get their ass kicked to some middling whatever team? Guys, you're a better program than Nebraska. I think you're a better program than Minnesota. You are not maybe as firmly entrenched in that upper tier B as you'd like to be. But I think you're tier B. And I think Bielema with changes can ensure that we stay there and hopefully get a few bites of the apple for above that. All right, we got a big old chat thread here. And I want to I'm just going to rip through these, excuse me. I got Billy saying, I could get used to being disappointed by 8-4. Billy, that's just it. I'm not waking up today saying, yeah, 8-4. I'm like, 8-4. Okay. How many times, Billy, I looked in media guides and saw John Makovic, 8 wins, a 10-win season. There's a 7-win, maybe a 6-win season in there. 8 wins, man. I always kind of had that in my mind as, like Iowa, I'm okay with that because what it does is it makes Saturdays meaningful. It makes us relevant. Are we going to win national titles? I don't think Brett Bielema is going to win a national title. I don't need him to win a national title. I don't know if I even need him to make a playoff. If that sounds like being okay with just being good, I would understand. But I have not gotten tired enough yet of this 8-win thing to say I need more or else. Maybe I will. Give me another 2 or 3 years, I might. But I'm with Billy. I could get used to being disappointed by 8-4. And maybe we will, Billy. All right, from pastry chef named, that's a long name, but hey, pastry chef, good for the guys leaving, like Miles and Akis. I'm still confused about the defense and why they didn't play aggressively all game. I'm excited for the new talent in 26, Hankins, Rankin especially. It is a good high school class. We'll see some of them play. I know St. Dom had left a comment on the last video about how, oh, man, watch out, Bielema's setting the table for him. I'm going to play a bunch of freshmen next year. We might suck. I don't think that's the case, but I think some will play, and good programs can play a few freshmen. Illinois will be in that position next year. But I agree, pastry chef, the aggression that we saw in the second half, why not from the start? You're playing in the snow. Force their hand. If they get a few chunk plays, so be it. Something changed at halftime. Was it Aaron Henry saying, you know what, I want to try this? Or is it Brett Bielema saying, call some more blitzes? Damn it. I don't know. We'll never know. But I think it is okay to ask yourself, what changed? From Brandon, last night was a feel-good type win. Wasn't sexy, but our seniors ended on a high note. Brandon, I've yet to talk about the seniors, but their legacy, I think last night was big on many fronts. How can you not be happy for them after they come into this program? They're freshmen during an 8-win campaign, so they see what that's like. And then they go 5 wins, 10 wins, and 8 wins respectively as they become more consistent contributors. I think to end with a 10 and 8-win season after the disappointment of 23 speaks volumes of that class, and that any of them are going to be welcomed back here with open arms. And hey, man, you gave us a Citrus Bowl. You gave us a Music City Bowl. You were there at the start with the ReliaQuest Bowl. You were in essence, kind of like the Io DeSumus, I guess, like the Pied Pipers of Illinois football, if this thing gets rolling, where we look back and say, that was a lot of fun. They got this consistency rolling in a way that other classes don't have that track record. This class, I think, would be the winningest class in Illinois football history, would they not? I'm sure there's something out there about that, because Brett Bielema, the last 5 years, has been one of the winningest, if not the winningest, Illinois football coach. So I assume they would be as far as players. The Bart Miller experience. Good for the guys leaving. Oh, wait, no, I already read that. Sorry. Oh, that was Pastry Chef, and it was the same thing from Bart Miller experience. So Bart Miller experience and Pastry Chef might be one and the same person. I'm confused. All right, from Brandon, the defense has multiple problems, so that is true. From Teddy, I can't believe they checked you. They didn't bother looking at my tickets or check us when we went in. Teddy, I got in right before the game started. I don't know when you would have been walking in. Walked in through Grange Grove, but I think everybody was. And, yeah, I mean, it was pretty chill. It was like, yeah, open your jacket. Okay, you don't have any TNT on you. I know I shouldn't make jokes about that. Sorry. But it was very lax because they got it. I mean, you're here to watch a game in the cold. You got a ticket, even if you don't really have a ticket. Funny story. My friend Andrew was going to park in lot 32 and 33 next to me. I told him, hey, man, I went in one of these entryways. They aren't checking, so just come park. I think they're just opening the lots for people as they should have done. And he parks and he says, yeah, so there was an attendant when I came in. And he said, do you have a parking pass? And I said, no. And he's like, are you a student? And then Andrew gave him a confused look, and the attendant said, just say you're a student. And then Andrew laughed, and then I'm a student, let him in. So the attendants, the workers there last night, kudos to them. They understood. Sometimes you read the room, you understand the situation. They did a great job clearing the field. The stands were not super clear, and it was slick. It was slick, but you know what? That would have been tough. I'm sure they were shorthanded, and they did the best they could. All right, Bart Miller says, hey, buy stock in Joe Barna now. Joey Wagner. That's your guy, Joey. He will be that dude next year, continues Bart Miller experience. Joe Barna did look good last night. Yeah, you saw disruption from the front. The hell was that all year? I know Northwestern's not the best of teams, but they aren't the worst. So, From Brandon, Miles Scott almost had 3 picks in 5 minutes. You're right. There was that third near miss. And also from Brandon, Bart Miller absolutely has to go. He does. He's got to go. Cookie says you will see 0 staff changes. Well, Cookie, that would temper my excitement big time. And I hope you're wrong. I think you're wrong. I don't think there's any choice. There's no choice. It'd be one thing, Cookie, if it were 1 year of bad defense and 1 year of bad offense. But it's not. Offensive line, excuse me. All right, let's see here. From Bart Miller, we also need a running back coach to teach Fagan to not run it up the ass of his interior O-lineman. Doesn't feel like Fagan's gone. They aren't giving him the ball. Saying something. I thought last night was a Fagan game, but I've been thinking that for a while now. So clearly, I don't think he's in their plans. Otherwise, he would have gotten more carries. Khalil Valentine bounced back, had a good game. Aiden Laughley had some shiftiness and a few good runs as well. I don't think Fagan's in the plans. I don't know why, but in their minds, I don't think they really have him as a big part next year. So it's weird, guys. I would have thought that, I don't know. It just seemed like a big recruit. Cookie says Fagan needs to change positions. He's not a running back. Well, you could try convincing him that. I mean, he might find in the portal, if he goes into it, that there's not a big market for him as a running back. He was recruited as a linebacker by most places. I mean, I would ask him if you want to do that, but he might be stubborn and say, I don't want to be a linebacker. I think it'd be a great spot for him, though. Hey, from CIDAA 22, SIDA 22, ILL and a bear down. What a weekend for football in the state of Illinois. Come on, man. That Bears game was so awesome. I mean, what a couple days of football. My heart is full. Fedigator says Henry and Bart are 100% returning. Based on what, Fedigator? Based on what? A hunch? I mean, not that I have inside info, but when people say things that, definitively, is that what your gut is telling you or what? Is it based on the press conference that Brett Bielema had last night? There was nothing he said last night that indicated to me that everyone's safe and sound. A week ago, he said, yeah, in the offseason, we're going to make, he didn't say we're going to make changes, but he said, we got the Northwestern game, but yeah, I mean, of course, we have adjustments to make. Okay. He's going to try to smooth this over the best he can for Aaron Henry's future as a professional coach, but it's over. And I'm sorry, if Josh Whitman, who would not be listening to this podcast, but you got to put your foot on Brett a little bit too. If that is something, Fedigator, that is a point of contention, too bad. You just got a $100 million check. Go get a coordinator worth a darn for the defense and get an offensive line coach. I mean, we are not asking the world here. We're asking for competent defense that is not in the bottom third of the Big Ten, which this defense was. And we're asking for an offensive line that can block, which this one was far too inconsistent at doing. Now, Fedigator continues, Lunny 90% returning. If he does leave, I expect him to take Boyd with him. I don't know what sell a group of 5 team would even have with Lunny after these last 3 games, and I know that's recency bias, but it's not as if Illinois' numbers at the end of the day are going to pop off the screen. There are quite a few offensive coordinators that have gaudy numbers that I think will get those looks before Barry Lunny. I would be happy with Barry Lunny getting a long-term contract here. Despite the lifelessness of the offense in the last 3 games, it is difficult for me to extricate that difficulty from the offensive line just not being that good. And if you're a play caller and your quarterback is under duress half the time and your running backs don't get holes, or some of you have said Caden Fagan just runs into the ass of an offensive lineman, okay, well, that's happened a couple of times too. I don't know what more he could do on some occasions. I will say there was one play from Lunny that drove me nuts. You had to get one more first down to ice the game. It's amazing how the Bears and Illinois games really mirrored each other. All you had to do, the Bears game against the Steelers, where all they had to do was just ice the game with the first down. They couldn't get one. All Illinois had to do yesterday, they get 1st and 10 from the 40 after that Miles Scott pick, his second pick, and you get a 3rd and 8 after your run got snuffed out on 2nd down, as so many did last night. And you send 5 wide. And I was telling Andrew before that play, here's what I think you should do. Just do a play action. They probably are not going to bite, but do a play action. And if someone's open, find them. And if someone is not, just fall. Take the sack and punt it. Which, by the way, punt game sucks. All you had to do was pooch it with that win last night. And we're just kicking in the end zone. We're having a punting competition to just see how far we can kick it. Direction, a little bit of airtime. I know the wind was just pooch the damn ball and pin them inside the 20. It didn't matter, fortunately. But oh my God, Keelan Crimmins has been left me wanting this year. Can we just not with the Australian? What happened to a good old American punters? I'm not being a xenophobic podcaster here. Australia is cool. Isn't Keelan Crimmins Australian? I feel like that's all our punters anymore. Just get a guy, get a good punter. Oh, just what is with this? It pisses me off. One job. Just don't do that. And I just saw it bounce in the end zone, and I shake my hand and said, Jesus Christ. Well, pooch the goddamn thing. All right, sorry, that was a point of contention because it was a little bit tense as the game was going on, thinking, all right, we got this great memory. All we got to do is close it out, and touchback. Or right before that, and 5 wide and complete pass, clock stops. I don't know. I like Barry Lunny, all things considered. I'm sure Keelan Crimmins is a nice guy and a decent punter, but just come on. Better than that, please. Brett has told people that Bart is one of the best O-line coaches in the Big Ten, says Fedigator. Yes, he has said that. He's also said plenty of glowing things about Aaron Henry. It's a big money business. If one thing he said about Bart Miller being the best O-lineman coach in the country, if that is enough to make him keep him, then I have significant questions about Brett Bielema. And he has an opportunity here. I just hope he doesn't waste it. All right. From Brandon, disappointing season, but the program is going in the right direction. The ceiling of this team was always 9 and 10 wins. Fedigator with the clarification here. 1 p.m. presser for Lane Kiffin and Alex Golesh going to Auburn. Former Illinois staffer under Tim Beckman. I did not have Alex Golesh becoming a big-time coach on my bingo card, but there you go. I'm sure Auburn fans are like, okay. Yeah, he had a good year at South Florida. I think it was South Florida. He's done pretty well as a head coach, but Auburn is, man. When's the last time a coach stayed at Auburn for more than 5 years? Tommy Tuberville, who's just lighting it up in the Senate right now. Not getting political, but that guy's a doofus. Let's just call it what it is. All right, another one here from, I'm sorry, I just messed up my mouse. Teddy says that Josh Whitman was standing at the doors greeting everyone when we walked in about 50 minutes before the game. Really cool of him to do that and took pictures with anyone who asked. That is cool. I think Josh and the athletic department as a whole really did a pretty good job yesterday, given the circumstances. And, you know, they understood. If you're here, you made an effort. We're going to try to make it as easy as we can on you. So I do appreciate that. All right. I think that's all I really got in the thread for today. And as Kentoner says, Lane Kiffin milking the moment, but looks like he will go to LSU, $12 million a year for 7 years. Whew. Man, you know, I understand it's a professional decision. It's big money sports. It's still icky. I mean, he's an icky guy. He always has been. Great coach, but an icky guy. LSU, icky. Their governor getting involved, icky. I enjoy Illinois football. I feel like it's a healthy relationship compared to what some Southern football fans have, which borders on, well, can I say icky for the 8th time in the last minute? Icky, and only that there's no morals, there's no scruples. It really is just about winning, and that's it. And there is something to be said. I want to win too. I would love this program to achieve the heights of an LSU. I don't think I'm going to see that in my lifetime. But for Lane Kiffin to leave his team before they host a college football playoff game, I don't know. I can't root for that. And if that sounds Pollyanna-ish, I understand. But it just doesn't sit right. I get it, but it doesn't sit right. And that's college football. That is college sports. I've embraced it all the best I can, especially with players getting money, because I think they deserve that money. But it is also kind of obscene. I mean, I love it, but it's also obscene. It's gladiatorial sports, the same way it was back in the day. And we're all culpable in it. We're all part of it. We don't need to lose sleep over it. But it's okay every now and then to just stop and say, wait a second. Is this a little bit much? But I digress. I hope that as you guys wake up today and reflect on that game last night, and reflect on the season, that you find some happiness with 8-4 while still having reservations. And I think it's a big week. I think things need to happen. I anticipate that they will, because you have no other choice. And it will go a long way in solidifying positive feelings for this program if you can say, all right, we won 8-4, but that's not good enough for what this team could have done. I think you get every fan on board at that point. And because of that, I think Brett Bielema is not stupid. And again, I don't know, guys. I really do think that the second half, the defensive change, it sounds like I'm putting my tinfoil hat on here, but it just seems like it was so drastically different. How can we not maybe guess that Brett Bielema said, okay, just this is what you're going to do, because your original plan ain't working? Unfair to Aaron Henry, perhaps, but it just seems like this defense that sometimes look great and other times look god-awful. Am I saying that every time they look great, it was because Brett Bielema took over? I can't say that with certainty. But that inconsistency alone tells you it ain't working. So, guys, I think a change will be made. It would be extremely disappointing if not, and I will be on here holding feet to the fire if there's anything about retention with him or Bart Miller, because those guys are not good enough. I hope they have a great Christmas holiday, and I hope they have a really good future ahead of them, just not here. But hey, Illinois 8-4. They beat Northwestern in the snow. Memorable game. What a night. And that was fun. We will be back, I believe, Wednesday. I think we'll do a midweek pod and talk more about Illini basketball, kind of the state of where they're at. Guys, they aren't bad. It's not that they're bad. I just keep going back to the word I'm bored. I'm bored with that program right now. And it's a good place to be bored with a team that'll make the NCAA tournament. And that's a good place, admittedly. I'm just bored. I'm tuckered out with the current state of Illini basketball. Though it is a long season, and I will happily eat crow. I will boil a hat or whatever I need to do if they end up having a great year. But Illini football, as we talked about today, 8-4, flawed, still an 8-win team, going to Nashville presumably for a good bowl game. A winnable game, I would imagine, against Tennessee if you get everybody back. Another thing I'll be watching, does Luke Altmaier play the bowl game? If not, it would be maybe more difficult for me to say for sure that I would go and invest that time and money in a bowl game, but I think he would play. He also would probably get a Senior Bowl invite, and at that point, you're playing postseason games to get tape out there and to get more exposure, which I think he needs because he's not really showing up on any draft boards. So I want to see him for selfish reasons play one more game. I also don't think it would hurt his stock. And now we just got to hope the offensive line keeps him upright. And maybe someone other than Bart Miller will be the one to do that. Should be, but Illinois is 8-4. So we can celebrate that and ask for more and hold those two truths in two different hands at the same time. I think that is fair. Before I get out of here, first of all, thank you all for tuning in. Before you leave, like, subscribe, follow. If you're looking for a stocking stuffer, here is the 200 level book. Whoop, whoop. Paperback, hardcover, Kindle, whichever version, stocking stuffer for the Illini fan in your life. Appreciate your support with that. And our sponsors, Hamilton Walkers, downtown Champaign, steak, seafood, and spirits for a date night, holiday dinner with your family and friends. No better time to visit Hamilton Walkers than in the month of December as the Christmas Yuletide log is overflowing. That didn't sound good. Not my best improv, Hamilton Walkers, but I will say, having gone there for the last couple of Decembers, it is truly an excellent place to have a meal around the holidays. That's Hamilton Walkers in downtown Champaign. Steak, seafood, and spirits. Also, State Farm agent Brian Hansen online at brianismyguy.com. Life, auto, home, business, renters, you name it. Brian is my guy and can be your guy as well at brianismyguy.com. Dogtown Heating, Air, and Plumbing, your home's best friend. Give them a call at 217-841-4728 and join their maintenance program. No overtime or weekend fees and guaranteed same-day service. Dogtown Heating, Air, and Plumbing. And Owen Builders LLC online at owenbuildersllc.com. For your next home improvement project, check out a gallery of their work online and get a free quote while you're there at owenbuildersllc.com. All right, everybody, thank you for tuning in on this Sunday morning. Enjoy your NFL Sunday. Bears fans can bask in the glow of the best record in the NFC. Isn't that right? Or I guess depending on the Rams. In their first place, at least for one more week until we play the Packers. And Illinois finishes the year 8-4. Great weekend for football in the state of Illinois. Stay warm if you can, and we will see you guys in a few days. It is the 200 level.